Hi, my name's Matt, and I'm going to be spending the next few minutes talking to you about our experience with Voluntastrols. I say our experience because this story is really about my wife, Amanda, who at 52 suffered a massive stroke back in February 2017. At 52, Amanda had none of the usual risk factors for stroke. She collapsed at home and spent 3 weeks in intensive care before being flown back to our local hospital, where she spent 3 months in rehab. The day after her stroke, the neurosurgeon warned me that due to the location of her bleed, she'd likely have impaired language functions, which might be as serious as speech loss and at least cause problems with spelling and numeracy. This was in addition to the complete loss of function on the right-hand side of her body. As Amanda's rehab, both physical and cognitive, progressed, it became clear that Amanda's issue was with symbols, so letters, numbers, colours and shapes. Initially, she couldn't remember our address, her date of birth, or how to even spell her own name. You may wonder why I have so many videos and photos of what was such a traumatic life experience for me and her and everyone in the family. Firstly, Amanda had significant memory issues and would have no recollection of what was happening to her, particularly early on. And I knew at some point she would ask me what had happened, so I decided I was going to keep a visual record, both photographs and video. Despite the significance of her injuries, Amanda made gradual progress in the early months of her recovery. And I was posting regular updates to Facebook, and people were telling me that they were very inspirational and should be read more widely. So I transcribed what I'd written so far into a blog and continued writing, and decided to call it Blue Banana Blog after Amanda's confusion naming fruit and also identifying colours correctly. She insisted bananas at one point were indeed blue. The blog took off and so far has been read more than 70,000 times and has resonated with speech therapists, fellow stroke recoverers and their caregivers and family members. One such family member contacted me after reading the blog and said his uncle had benefited from a natural supplement that they had discovered. At this point, it's worth noting that, as I've already said, Amanda was otherwise healthy before her stroke. She wasn't on any prescribed medication before and was actually discharged from hospital without the need for anything at all medical. At home, I made sure she ate healthy food, and the only nod really to her stroke specifically was a handful of blueberries with her breakfast porridge and a few squares of good quality dark chocolate a few times a week, which I'd read were good for promoting brain function. So I read the Voluntastrols website information and did some background research, and after Amanda agreeing to start taking daily capsules, she started on Voluntastrols on Good Friday 2018, initially breaking the capsules and mixing the contents into her breakfast porridge because she's not very good at taking tablets and the capsules are quite large. At this point, it was already a year after her stroke, and I was conscious of the concept of the plateau, the point where stroke recoverers can stop progressing any further. But I was treating Amanda's stroke like an injury, not an illness, and decided that you can recover from an illness, so we just kept going. So anything that could help, particularly if it wasn't prescription drugs, was worth looking into. After all, up until that point, we hadn't tried anything from a bottle or a tube, prescribed or otherwise. So before taking Voluntastrols, Amanda had started using apps on her iPad to help rebuild her brain connections and reinstall her reading and mathematical skills. But mental fatigue would kick in after about 15 to 20 minutes and she would have to stop, which made it hard to retain anything, and she'd have to almost start from scratch again the next day. I had no expectations of what the effect Voluntastrols might have, other than knowing that they weren't a cure and they had been developed to assist with a range of situations, not just stroke. But one thing I had realised during her recovery was that since I'd known her and we'd been married for over 35 years, I knew her incredibly well and was confident that I had noticed the improvements so far and would also be able to detect any further developments once she started taking the Voluntastrol capsules. Within 10 days, the first thing I noticed was that Amanda's concentration had improved. She was now sitting for more than an hour, concentrating hard on the various cognitive tests and activities presented to her by the constant therapy app that she was using on her iPad. And she was also, for the first time, not confusing the names of our two cats, and also not asking me to repeat everything to her twice. As the weeks progressed, she was also now into the second year of her recovery, and improvements should be slowing down. But I and fellow family members could see a noticeable improvement in her speaking confidence, also her ability to concentrate for long periods, and also elements of her previous character were starting to return. Simple but important things like sense of humour or instigating a conversation. Of course, none of Amanda's improvements are scientifically measurable in a clinical trial sense, so you're going to have to take my testimony as someone who knows her better than anyone, probably in fact since her stroke better than she even knows herself. Before her stroke, Amanda had always been a positive person who now, of course, faced significant challenges, both physical and cognitive. Prior to taking Voluntastrols, her mood was generally good, so I wasn't necessarily expecting any elevated level of mood. But as year 2 continued, people were commenting on her determination and resilience and how that was continuing. During this time, she also had to contend with a number of medical and emotional hurdles, all of which she dealt with while continuing to work on her stroke recovery on a daily basis. Based on new research, Amanda switched to taking her Voluntastrols before bed. Every morning she was waking up and continues to wake up with a smile on her face and the motivation to see what the day holds for her. She still has some way to go in her stroke recovery, and I've no way to prove Voluntastrols have made a measurable difference to her and our lives, because you can't measure happiness, and essentially they're elevating her mood. I have read many accounts from hundreds of people at various stages of recovery from strokes and other brain injuries, and in my opinion, Amanda is in a far better emotional state than many of them are. This is probably due to many factors, but I hope at least that Voluntastrols are contributing to her overall psychological well-being.